Hi there. Sorry. I always get a chuckle out of the way I say hi there, howdy. I like being friendly and conjovial. Um, Here we are, experiment 19. Who knew it would go this far? I'm an author. Edit me. Most people don't realize that real authors have signs on their back, painted in red. Edit me. Anyway, um, we're taking a slight detour from where I thought we'd be. That's another surprise, isn't it? If you've been following these, you know we detour all over the place. Oh. Anyway, and I'm having fun. I sure hope you are. Um, I wanted to go over plot lines today because I just spent 4 days adjusting a um, plot line. Actually, it was a timeline, but that involves plot line, also involves through lines. Anyway, I spent the past 3 days adjusting the timeline of the story that let me check and I can tell you, I think the original version that I wrote this story was in, oh, let's see. The first version that I have is from 2013, December of 2013. That's interesting because I'm positive I made stabs at this much sooner. Anyway, we'll go with 2013. So here we are 10 years later, 12 years later. I can add and subtract too. Anyway, it's on its 17th revision. And I think, according to some readers, I think I finally got it right. The challenge was the timeline in the story because there's multiple characters, and this is I don't know, 9,500 word story, so not quite novella, long short story, a long story. Anyway, before I forget, my God, let's listen to La Guitarrera. If you can't hear it, pity, because this is freaking phenomenal music. And I really strongly recommend picking up the CD and supporting the guitarists on it. All the guitarists on this are women. And should you ever have been chauvinistic enough to think that only men could really make that instrument sing, well, here's a wake-up call to you. This is phenomenal. Anyway, okay, back to it. Plot lines, through lines, timelines. In this one story, The Absolute Limit of Sound, there are several characters, each narrating their element of the story in past tense until the very final scene, which is in present tense. Now, one thing to be aware of is that the story is written as the individual characters discover stuff about each other. So character A may have 3 sections, and then character B comes in back to the original character A time period and discovers something. Okay. What happened was I, even as the author, got a little confused. I was rereading it last week, preparing to send it out again, and it had been thoroughly rejected by everyone. 2 critique groups had gone over it, and they were blown away and mightily confused by it. So, all right. I read and I read and I read through again, and I was reading the first 2 or 3 pages, and I was like, whoa, this is freaking phenomenal writing. You ever have that experience of you're shocked at how well you wrote something? That was me. I got to page 4 and I went, what the hell is going on? I've totally lost track of what's happening. And I realized I had lost track as basically a new reader because I hadn't touched it in a couple of years. I lost track of the sequence. Okay, relatively easy fix. Put in timestamps so the reader knows this entry from this guy's journal is on this date. This entry from this person's notebook is on this date. This video from this person's camera is on this date. Easy enough to solve, except now I had to make sure that the timeline, the story, the plot line, if you will, worked. The timeline shifted, but the plot line had to work. So I resorted to a technique that, or a solution, if you will, that a writing coach gave me. And he gave me that when he was reading the original Augmented Man. Where do we have that? Oh, where are you, Augie? The Augmented Man is buried beneath all my other books. Can you believe that I would do that to him? I've written a few books. I don't know if you knew that. The original Augmented Man. Yeehaw. Okay. And that was a book with 2 primary characters, a bunch of secondary characters, fairly well established through line, fairly well established plot line. The timeline jumped. So he said, take every scene, every chapter, every scene in each chapter, excuse me, and put it on a 3x5 card. Don't know if you can see. Yep, there it goes, 3x5 card. The name of the chapter, where it is in the sequence, what happens in that chapter, and lay them out. So here's one, here's one, there's 4 all the way through. And one of the things I realized was there were 2 or 3 points in the novel, in The Shaman, where the story was discontinuous. Both plot line and through line were discontinuous because even though the timeline jumped, I did not have the timeline sequenced for the plot line for the story that was being told, okay? I used the same technique when I went from this version, the 2016 version of Empty Sky, to the 2023 version of Empty Sky. Now, in that case, I had, again, a couple of primary characters, a bunch of secondary characters. However, the major challenge there was that the characters were introduced in their own unique timelines. And then the timelines merged at a point in the novel. Much less of a challenge, but still, what I did was I created a timeline sequence for each character. This one's for Shem. And this is all about how Shem evolves, changes, grows through the story. Then I was able to mix and match what happens in this character's timeline to this character's timeline. What I was doing was I was creating the timelines of each individual character, putting them together and seeing how they merged. The same technique was amazingly useful for the Inheritors. Again, this story had a main protagonist, a main antagonist, and some really close, almost main secondary characters. Very, very necessary characters to get the story going. The Inheritors has a lot of time. The whole thing is about time travel. Okay. So the concern was, even though the story jumped up and down through time, I had to come up with a way to make the plot line continuous through time. That was not a great challenge, because once I figured it wasn't a great challenge. It was a great challenge until I figured it out. But I'm clever. Oh, maybe not. Ask my wife. Anyway, what I did was I decided that people's consciousnesses, in the case of the Inheritors, people's consciousnesses are linear through time. So no matter how things are jumping around chronologically, historically, all I needed to do was create basically a consciousness timeline for the characters, so that even though they were jumping through time, they were aware of things on their personal timelines going in a certain direction, continuous. I have found that to be a very useful tool. I hope you will as well. And I want to make a note here, because I'm a persnickety bastard. I mentioned earlier about getting a writing coach. And I've said, I believe, a number of times that I take classes. I study, I read, I get books. I was in a group once where someone said they never pay for anything because there's so much for free online. And my immediate honest to God response was, is that why your writing sucks? Because their writing did suck. Let me be very correct and accurate. Their writing was okay. It was not standout. It needed a lot of help, in my opinion. Excuse me. But that was my opinion. And I've been told by people who work with me that I've ruined books for them, because once they spend 2 or 3 hours, 2 or 3 classes with me, understanding what makes good writing work, they can't read books the same way anymore. Which, well, okay. The other part of that is people who are not authors, who listen to me talk about what makes good writing work, whether it's poetry, plays, television scripts, movie scripts, whatever, books. They tell me that now they know why they don't like something that they're watching or reading. So there you go. That's the same to me as the wine connoisseur. I personally don't want to develop a really good wine palate. I'm perfectly happy with a $6 bottle of Rex Goliath, good wine. Give me something that's way up around 50, 60 bucks. I think I'm drinking camel piss. Just ugh. Anyway, take a class. If not with me, with somebody, because it'll improve your writing, or it'll give you an indication of just where you stand in your writing. Maybe you're better than the teacher. I would love to have someone come to me and find out they're better than me, so I could learn from them. Anyway, there you are. Plot lines, timelines, through lines, do a line. Thank you. Take care. He scours for the shut off button. Where is it? Oh, there it is. Bye-bye.